Welcome to the Red Pill Podcast, powered by AgencyX.net. Explore AI-driven creativity, groundbreaking innovations, and industry insights, all in one game-changing podcast. Enjoy.
Imagine just grabbing a greasy napkin from your local coffee shop.
Okay.
You scribble this terrible sketch of an app idea with a ballpoint pen, right? And then you just point your phone at it and watch it turn into a fully functional coded website in like 5 seconds.
Yeah, which is wild to even think about.
No keyboards, no menus at all, just reality instantly becoming software.
Right.
Today, we are taking a deep dive into this really fascinating April 2026 blog post from AgencyX. It was written by Webstrix, and it's titled, "We're Moving Beyond Text, and It's a Big Deal."
It really is a big deal.
It is. And our mission for this deep dive is to figure out why AI is finally breaking out of its, text-only bubble. We want to understand how the underlying architecture actually makes that possible and how this shift is about to fundamentally change how you interact with every single device you own.
Because it is a truly massive structural shift in computing. We spent the last few years just totally mesmerized by large language models. We gave them text, we got text back, and we collectively thought, well, that's the peak of the mountain.
Right, like that was the magic trick.
Exactly. But the Webstrix post points out that everything meaningful in that dynamic was happening inside a very small, highly constrained abstraction layer. And that era is officially ending now.
It is. And to really grasp what is happening here, think about traditional text-only AI like a brilliant friend of yours, but a friend who has lived their entire life inside a windowless room.
Oh, I like that.
Right. The only way they have ever learned about the world is by reading books that you slide under the door.
Just pure data.
Exactly. So they know everything there is to know about an apple, theoretically. They know the chemical composition, the history of orchards, the poetry written about them.
But they've never seen one.
Never. They've never actually seen an apple. They have never heard the crunch when you bite into it. They've never felt the weight of it in their hand. Multimodal AI is like that brilliant friend finally opening the door, stepping outside, and experiencing the messy physical world for themselves for the very first time.
Which changes everything about how they understand it.
Okay, let's unpack this. What does that actually look like architecturally? Because, saying it steps outside is a really nice metaphor, but how does the system actually process that reality?
Well, the key distinction the author makes here is the difference between these duct tape systems we used to have and native multimodality.
Duct taped meaning what, exactly?
So in the past, if you wanted an AI to look at an image, you were essentially running an optical character recognition script, like an OCR tool.
Oh, right.
And that tool just scanned the image for letters, translated those letters into raw text, and then fed that text to the language model.
So it's still just reading a book under the door.
Exactly. It threw away the colors, the layout, the context, the emotion of the image. The text-only model lived entirely in abstraction, always one step removed from the actual object.
So how is native multimodality different?
Native multimodality changes the underlying math. The model doesn't translate an image into text anymore. It maps pixels, audio waves, and text tokens into the exact same high-dimensional vector space.
Wait, so a spoken word and a painted picture are speaking the exact same mathematical language to the model?
Precisely. It approximates a real understanding of the things themselves because it interprets all of those inputs simultaneously through the same neural pathways.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and the source gives these fantastic examples of how this changes the user experience.
Right, because that's what actually matters to the person using it.
Exactly. Instead of spending 20 minutes writing a painstaking prompt to describe, say, a terrible user interface you are trying to fix, you just throw a raw screenshot at the model and ask, how would you improve this?
Just literally hand it the picture.
Yes. Or you record a rambling, disorganized voice memo while you're out walking the dog, and the model instantly outputs a highly structured data schema for your next project.
That sounds like magic.
It understands the cadence of your voice, the pauses, the intent, and maps it directly to the output. It's one unified system.
Okay, but I have to push back here a little bit. If I feed it a rambling, half-asleep voice memo and like a chaotic, weirdly cropped screenshot, isn't that just garbage in, garbage out?
You would think so, yeah.
Right. I mean, why wouldn't throwing messy, unstructured data at the system completely break it compared to a clean, carefully typed prompt.
What's fascinating here is that multimodality is the exact mechanism that solves the fragility problem.
Oh, really? How so?
Well, the reason we had to write those clean, careful prompts in the past is because text-only AI was fundamentally fragile. It lacked context.
Because it was stuck in the windowless room.
Exactly. But because a native multimodal model embeds all data in that shared vector space, it uses cross-modal context to anchor its understanding.
Oh, so it triangulates the meaning.
It triangulates, yes.
Right.
When you give it a screenshot of a messy spreadsheet, right, and an audio clip of you complaining about a specific data point, it uses the audio to contextualize the visual.
And the visual to ground the audio.
Exactly. The burden of translation, that exhausting mental effort of formatting your chaotic human thoughts into perfect, machine-readable text, is completely lifted off the user.
That is a massive relief, honestly.
The model connects the dots for you. We're moving from predicting the next word in a sentence to approximating a real multi-dimensional understanding of the environment.
But wait, that creates an immediate bottleneck, doesn't it?
In what way?
Well, if the system now relies on high-fidelity reality to function, if I am constantly feeding it video of my screen, audio of my meetings, photos of my whiteboard, sending all of that heavy, unstructured data to the cloud, introduces a massive latency problem.
Oh, absolutely.
Not to mention the privacy nightmare of uploading internal company data to a random server somewhere just to ask a quick question.
Yeah, you wouldn't want to do that.
Yeah.
And that latency and privacy friction is exactly why the industry is rushing to move these models out of massive server farms and onto local machines. The Agency X post highlights this as the next major revolution. The rise of local multimodal models.
Running right on your own device.
Right. Tools like Gemma, running directly on your own hardware, are acquiring these exact same vision and audio capabilities. The author makes it really clear that multimodality is no longer just a premium cloud feature.
It's becoming table stakes for local execution.
Exactly. Table stakes.
And the hardware has finally caught up to make that possible. We're seeing neural processing units, or NPUs, baked right into the silicon of consumer devices now.
Specifically to handle the matrix math these models require.
Right. Which completely changes what our devices actually are. I mean, think about it. Right now, we treat our phones like digital mailboxes.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it.
We open them to see what the internet sent us, or we type text into a little box to send something back.
Very one-directional.
But when you put a local multimodal AI onto a device equipped with high-end cameras, sensitive microphones, and gyroscopes, the phone turns into a digital retina.
Digital retina.
It's no longer just receiving information. It is actively processing the physical room you're sitting in.
That is a critical shift. We stop treating the device like a small television and start treating it as a persistent sensor array.
Here's where it gets really interesting. The source paints this picture of what a digital retina actually looks like in practice.
Okay, let's hear it.
Say you are in a strategy meeting. You snap a photo of a chaotic whiteboard full of arrows and circled ideas, just a total mess.
Classic meeting.
Right. Because the model is running locally on the NPU, it instantly turns that physical mess into structured, actionable project tasks. Zero latency, zero cloud upload.
And the security implications of that alone are staggering.
I bet.
You can have the device listen to a highly confidential hour-long board meeting, right? It can understand who is speaking, grasp the context of the financial debate, and generate a fully searchable knowledge base of the conversation.
All without anyone worrying about leaks.
Because the audio never leaves the device. Enterprise privacy policies aren't violated at all.
That's huge for corporate adoption.
Or consider a data analysis scenario. You're looking at a complex, printed financial report, just a piece of paper. You point your camera at a bar chart and ask out loud, why did Q3 dip compared to the projection?
And it just knows.
The local model analyzes the visual geometry of the chart, correlates it with the documents stored locally on your hard drive, and answers you in real time.
Wait, if the device natively understands the whiteboard, the chart, and my spoken request, then the entire concept of the app ecosystem is basically dead.
Yeah, it really is.
Because I wouldn't need to open a specific camera app to take a photo, import it into a text recognition app, export that to a cloud LLM, and then paste the result into a task management app.
You just wouldn't do any of that.
Yeah.
And that leads to the most provocative claim in Websterix's post. The model becomes the interface.
The model is the interface?
Right, the rigid software paradigm we have relied on for 40 years, the endless menus, the specific file types, the strict data schemas you have to define up front, it's actively dying.
So what replaces it?
We are moving toward fluid workspaces.
a workspace that just morphs into whatever data I throw at it.
Exactly.
The source envisions these environments where your rough sketches, your PDF references, and your audio notes all blend together seamlessly. The system just ingests it and transforms it based on your intent.
It doesn't care about file formats.
Right, but hold on. People panic when an app updates and moves a button 2 pixels to the left.
Till they lose their minds.
They really do.
Yeah.
We are creatures of habit. We find comfort in knowing exactly where the file and edit buddies live.
Sure.
So a completely fluid, open-ended workspace where you just tell it what to do sounds terrifying. Won't the average user just freeze up in the face of a blank, structureless void?
That psychological friction is very real.
Yeah.
But the source frames the solution around the shifting of cognitive load.
Shifting it where?
Well, historically, the hardest part of using a computer was you, the human, having to figure out the tool.
Right.
You had to learn the software's unique language, memorize its weird keyboard shortcuts, and conform to its architectural limitations.
Like learning Photoshop or Excel, it's a whole skill.
Exactly. In a multimodal paradigm, that burden shifts entirely. The model figures out the tool for you.
So the UI doesn't necessarily vanish into a terrifying void. It just becomes ephemeral.
Ephemeral is the perfect word for it. It generates on demand. Iteration becomes conversational and visual simultaneously.
Okay, give me an example of that.
Say you are working on an image, and you need a granular way to adjust the saturation. The system generates a slider for you in that exact moment.
Just pops a slider onto the screen?
Yes. You use the slider, and when you move on to a different task, the slider dissolves.
Oh, wow.
You are no longer navigating a labyrinth of menus to find the one tool you need. The interface forms around your current thought process and gets out of the way when you're done.
Okay, but if interfaces are becoming this ephemeral, generated on the fly by the model and dissolving when the user is done, the people who actually build software are facing an existential rewrite of their jobs.
You mean developers?
Yes, the developers.
The developer's reality is completely upended by this. I mean, think about the first wave of AI-assisted programming. It was essentially a really smart autocomplete.
Right.
A developer would write a text comment explaining the logic of a sorting function, and the AI would predict the next lines of code. It was strictly a text-to-text operation.
But with multimodal AI, the prompt isn't just text anymore. It becomes the entire development environment.
Yes.
The prompt shifts from write this function to look at my screen, look at my database schema, look at the server logs, and tell me why this button is rendering off-center.
It sees the whole picture.
Multimodal AI fundamentally closes the gap between having a concept, building the architecture, and fixing the bugs when it breaks.
And the source details how this cross-modal debugging works. And it is a massive leap. The AI can read the back-end logic and simultaneously see the graphical user interface the way a human user sees it.
So it's looking at the code and the final product at the same time.
Exactly. It can connect a weird, obscure database error buried in the text logs with a visual glitch happening on the front-end screen.
That's incredible.
It can literally look at a complex architecture diagram drawn on a physical whiteboard and evaluate if the current code base actually implements that design correctly.
It is like having a senior pair programmer sitting right next to you at your desk.
That's a great analogy.
They aren't some remote helper you have to constantly text descriptions to, hoping they understand your problem. They're looking at the exact same monitor you are.
Yeah.
They can point to a visual artifact on the screen and say, oh, that alignment issue is happening because of a conflict in this specific line of CSS.
And if we connect this to the bigger picture, the fact that this is running locally on the developer's machine is the real unlock here.
Because of the latency again.
Yes, and the integration. A multimodal system deeply integrated into the local IDE, the development environment, means the absolute end of context switching.
You never have to leave the flow state.
Never. You don't have to copy and paste proprietary company code into a web browser to ask an external cloud model a question.
Right, which breaks your concentration completely.
You aren't relying on an API that might suddenly change its pricing model or experience a server outage. The intelligence is native to the machine, evaluating the code and the visual output in real time, completely securely.
It creates a shared, continuous reality between the developer and the machine.
It really does.
So what does this all mean? When we pull back and look at everything Webstrix is outlining in this Agency X post, the shift from text abstractions to shared vector spaces, the rise of MPU-powered local models, the death of rigid apps in favor of ephemeral interfaces, and the total rewiring of how software is built. It points to the collapse of friction.
Yeah, that's it, exactly.
Multimodal AI is fundamentally eroding the barrier between thinking of something and making it real.
That is the core takeaway. We are no longer dealing with systems that just predict the next word. We are moving toward collaborators that can work with us in the messy, beautiful, multi-sensory mediums we actually use to think.
We don't think in just text.
I don't.
Yeah.
It takes computing from a highly structured, isolated task and turns it into a deeply personal, infinitely adaptable process that is completely integrated into our physical environment.
And that leaves us with a provocative thought to end on today. The source notes that interacting with these models makes traditional on-screen UI completely optional. If our spoken conversations are hastily drawn sketches and the physical environment around us become the interface, what happens to our definition of screen time?
Oh, that's an interesting question.
For the last decade, we have constantly looked down at our phones, pulling our attention away from the physical world to escape into a digital abstraction. But if the AI can finally see and hear the world alongside us, will we stop looking down? Will we start holding our devices up, using them not to escape reality, but to actively collaborate with the physical world around us? It is a fundamental shift in our relationship with technology, something to chew on the next time you find yourself endlessly scrolling. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive.
Thanks for having me.
That's a wrap for this episode of the Red Pill Podcast. If you enjoyed diving deep into the future of AI and media, make sure to follow and subscribe so you never miss an episode. Stay tuned. Bigger insights, bolder ideas, and game-changing discussions are coming your way. Sponsored by agencyx.net.